Hey guys, Enzo here from Home Theatre Engineering. This is our Apple TV 4K video part 2. Part 1 obviously was a very big video. We had over 200,000 views. But today we're going to touch on some questions that a few people have asked and focus a little bit on Dolby Vision. We're going to bring in the expert, Andrew Poole. Everyone knows Andrew. Andrew, come on in.
Hi folks, how's it going? Welcome back to Home Theatre Engineering's YouTube channel, and thanks for the introduction, Enzo. So today we're just going to review a little bit of part 1 where we talked about the best settings for Apple TV 4K, but especially today, Dolby Vision. Now, before we get going, one of the important things is to validate that your TV will do high dynamic range and that it will do Dolby Vision.
How do we do that, Andrew?
Okay, so we'll go into the menu. Alright, and we will just force HDR first.
So we go Format.
Yep.
And then we're just going to 4K HDR.
Alright, now what you're seeing, this blank, this is actually a good thing. It's much faster on a television, but most projectors take some time to do what we call the handshake. This is this projector setting itself up to change format from standard dynamic range to high dynamic range or to Dolby Vision. So what happened there? We got a window that popped up that said yes, and we accepted the change. Yep. And we now have 4K HDR. Also, we've got a special device plugged in here that tells us that HDR is working. So this is a thing called an HD Fury, and in here this gives us all the information as to what's going on, what's being sent and what's being received.
The EDID information?
This is the EDID information, yep. Extended display information data.
Wow.
So at the moment we can see we're now running HDR. Now we're going to go back and we're going to try Dolby Vision. So let's just pop up and see if Dolby Vision works. Now, just for clarity here, yes, we're using a projector. No, projectors don't support Dolby Vision. I don't want to confuse the issue. You need to make sure that your TV supports Dolby Vision. We're using a special device here to allow us to enable Dolby Vision to do this demonstration on a projector. But no, projectors generally don't support Dolby Vision. You do need to make some changes. That's an entirely different video, folks. Okay, so we now have this flag that says here, DV, Dolby Vision. Right, so it's accepted Dolby Vision. We've now checked that our TV or projector accepts high dynamic range, HDR, and we've checked it supports Dolby Vision. Alright, that said, we can now go to the proper settings. So what we're going to do is go back to our settings again.
So I've put it onto 4K SDR now.
Yeah. Now, the menus are in standard dynamic range. If you want them to look really colourful and great, you need to be in SDR. So we've got, and we'll just review these, 4K SDR, you saw us changing the settings there. HDMI output, YC BCR, just leave it on that. Chroma 444, we'll just press on that for a second. Right, you've got different options here. You might see 422, 420, 444. The higher the number, the better, unless you're getting weird results, and then take it back down to the lower number. Now, just for general information, most of the content you'll ever see is actually in 420, but you can send it to your TV or projector in a higher detail, basically. So here we've selected 444. We'll back out of here. Most important of all, select match dynamic range. So this will now match whether it's SDR, HDR or Dolby Vision, and match frame rate, that's going to be whether it's 24 Hz or 60 Hz.
And this is where the catch is, because Apple TV out of the box forces 4K HDR and the match content is off and off.
Yes.
And sometimes even if you've done an update or there's been a loss of power or you've unplugged it, it will always revert back to the old settings. So you've got to keep an eye on this quite often.
That's absolutely correct. And even whilst we're setting up for the video today, if we unplug and plug the HDMI cable and use different devices, the Apple TV keeps defaulting back to HDR. So let's just confirm that. We'll just go back for a second. I just want to confirm in the settings one more time. So it's really important you understand 4K SDR is what you need. Match range and frame rate is what you need after you've proven that you can do HDR and Dolby Vision. Okay.
So this is the optimum settings for your Apple TV.
Absolutely. Now let's go. What we're going to do, Enzo's going to find some content that we know is in standard dynamic range. So we'll use a cave diving movie. We'll go down to Sanctum. Not that I enjoy cave diving. Okay, there it is on the right.
Tangled, is that yours?
My daughters. So we're going to play this. This is just an HD movie, and we'll just show you the data that we get to confirm.
So by matching frame rate and content, if it's an SD movie, it's an SD picture. It doesn't force HDR.
That's correct. Now, we may not see data on this one because we've been staying in the SDR colour space. We'll see what pops up. Here we go.
SDR.
Okay, BT709, that's the 709 colour space, 8-bit, standard dynamic range. We are now watching a movie in SDR, alright? That's exactly as it should be. Now we're going to pop out of that movie and we're going to find an HDR movie. Not a Dolby Vision movie, but an HDR movie. Okay, these blank periods that you're seeing, these are the handshake periods. Quite fast on a TV, can take quite some time on a projector.
Just love HDMI.
Right, so now we're playing a movie that we know is HDR, high dynamic range. Here we go. Again, another handshake as the projector reconfigures itself in terms of things like light output and dynamic range for this content. And here we go. So now we're in the BT2020 colour space. Doesn't mean that you're receiving BT2020 colour, by the way. That's just the container it's sent in. 12-bit now, high dynamic range, and that's exactly what this movie is designed to be. Alright, so we know that HDR is working. Let's go back again.
Which is a 4K film that does Dolby Vision. There's quite a few of them now, which is a good thing.
It's interesting because as Enzo and I were setting up to do this video, we were amazed at how much content was going on, and we were looking at some of the discs coming out that actually aren't marked as Dolby Vision but have Dolby Vision content, and that's quite interesting. Okay, so now we know this is a Dolby Vision movie, and we are going to play that. And for those of you who are saying, look, you're using Dolby Vision on a projector, yes we are, again, that's another video, don't worry about that. The fact of the matter is we're showing that Apple TV will switch to the correct format even when it's set on standard dynamic range. So now we have DV, Dolby Vision, okay, BT2020 colour space. So we are successfully getting standard dynamic range, we are successfully getting high dynamic range, and we are successfully getting Dolby Vision. All with your Apple TV set to 4K SDR, and we'll go back to the settings one more time just to prove that that's absolutely what's happening. Again, you see the menu, right, is in standard dynamic range, and if you want these colours to really pop, that's what you need to be in. So here we go, just a quick review. We are set to 4K SDR. We know it's counterintuitive, but this is the way it goes.
That's the foundations. We've got to get the foundations right.
Yeah. And then most importantly, matched range, matched frame rate. Then the Apple TV looks at the content, says what is the dynamic range,
and matches,
and what is the frame rate, and it matches it, and it sends it to your system. Okay, and the default is SDR, which is what the Apple TV menu is in. So if you want all your colours to pop and look great, then fine. Now, we've had a few people comment that they've done this and it looks strange. If it's looking washed out and faded, there are several reasons. One is that your HDR is not working properly, or your Dolby Vision is not working properly, or you haven't used the right cable. There's a whole lot of reasons.
Internet bandwidth?
Probably not so much. That would more be a change in resolution and picture quality. But ultimately, these settings work. We've proven them. We've got the EDIT information here. We know this is an absolute fact. The only thing I would say again is please remember, if you unplug and plug your HDMI cable with different devices, please always go back to these settings and check that they're correct. Okay?
I've made it a habit of checking this every couple of days now. Because I've noticed Apple does some weird stuff, and yeah, we found them magically back to standard again. But yes, never enable. And sometimes I've noticed as well that Apple gets a bit cheeky, and the next day you turn the TV on and it actually asks you again, do you want to enable? And just make sure you tell everyone in the family not to touch that button.
Yeah, you want to do it. It's kind of tempting. It's like the big red button that says do not push that everybody wants to push. Don't do it. Leave it on at 4K SDR. Do not enable HDR and you will be fine. Alright, we'll do another video later. We'll look at audio, but for now that's plenty, and we hope this really helps people trying to understand, does Dolby Vision work in this format? Yes, it absolutely does, but please test all of your system first to make sure it works. Thanks very much for checking in. Thanks, Enzo. Thanks to
guys.
everybody who's watching us and supporting our channel. Please share with your friends. Obviously, like and subscribe, and we'll bring more and more information. We've got some great stuff coming up with TV calibrations, and we've got some test patterns that we're going to make available to you. So stick with us. All right. See you soon.